In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, I'm going to share my thoughts on the next generation of prospects that we could see in Los Angeles in the 2028 Olympics. Of course, their goal is to dethrone Team USA. So I'm going to share my thoughts on some prospects that we'll see on Team USA and representing their national teams for other countries. Stay tuned. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I am your host, Rafael Barlowe, the Director of Scouting for NBA Big Board, and I found Big Board Global, which is my scouting service aimed at helping college coaches identify some of the top international prospects, not necessarily NBA prospects, but international prospects that can help them win. So if you're not subscribed to the NBA Big Board newsletter, or if you like international prospects, subscribe and check out Big Board Global. And of course, you have to subscribe, like, share, comment for the NBA Big Board YouTube channel. All right. But before we get into this episode, I want to let you know that it is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. With the summer winding down, sports stop sporting like I want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with the boost or bonus every single day. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com. All right. So what gave me the idea for this episode was I was in Paris and just got back yesterday. I was on a long flight and I started thinking about some of the international prospects that we will see in the future. And if there is a team strong enough to beat Team USA, we've heard for a few years now that the gap is closing. And I do think that the gap is closing between the US and the rest of the world. But at the end of the day, if you just go by championships, the US has won the gold medal. And I think it's like their sixth straight gold medal, I think since professionals, or I guess since 2004. Team USA has only lost one game in Olympic play, and that was in Tokyo. But other than that, Team USA has been dominant. So I do think that Team USA will be the favorites going into the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. But I do think that France, Canada, maybe Germany, Serbia, I do think those teams, Australia, could give Team USA a run for their money. Not necessarily beat them, but have some pretty competitive games. So in the first segment, I want to talk about Team USA, the potential roster on Team USA. I don't know if there's going to be an opportunity for NBA prospects other than Cooper Flag. You never know, somebody could emerge that can make Team USA. But for other teams, like France, for example, I do think help is on the way. I do think that there are quite a few guys that either were in the 2024 NBA Draft, 2025 NBA Draft, or maybe a couple drafts before that we could see on the national stage representing their national team. All right, so let's just get right into this episode. First, I want to talk about Team USA. And Team USA has been dominant. Like I mentioned in the open, a lot of people are saying the gap is closing. Fair assessment. We haven't blown teams out, at least in the gold medal game, like years past. I do think that the 1992 Dream Team kind of set some unrealistic and unfair expectations. The world is definitely better as far as basketball than it was in 1992. But Team USA run has been impressive. Like I mentioned, they've won gold in the last 6 Olympics, and I want to say like 17 of the last 20 appearances in basketball for Team USA has resulted in a gold medal. But there's going to be a changing of the guard in 2028, possibly. I don't want to rule it out. I think LeBron will be 43, Steph Curry will be 30, Kevin Durant will be 39 years old. Now, on paper, it looks like this is their last Olympics. However, I don't know if you can really count those guys out. They are playing at a high level. And I mean, even right now, LeBron is 39. Kevin Durant is, I think, 36. Steph Curry is around the same age. And each of those three guys averaged over 25 points per game in a 23-24 season. So on one hand, it doesn't look like they'll be able to play in 4 years based off, traditional thinking. But on the other hand, based off their productivity and the fact that Steph is going to be a dangerous shooter in 4 years, Kevin Durant could just play a role as a spot-up shooter in 4 years. And LeBron, even if he declines 20%, he's still going to have the IQ and the strength and the ability to play. So I don't think that it's out of the question for at least one of those guys between LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant to play in 2028. I have this wild scenario, even though LeBron has, I think he's casually mentioned he don't think he'll play, but for some reason I can just visualize the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles being like LeBron's farewell tour. So anyway, let's talk about some guys that could make the Team USA roster for the United States in 2028. I think you have to start with Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is a guy that a lot of people believe he could be the face of the league. Still has to win a little bit more, but he has the personality and the game to really be someone that the league markets. You have Jason Tatum. A lot has been made about his lack of playing time. I imagine he'll be on the 28 squad. Zion Williamson is a name that I've heard brought up. I mean, there's quite a few guys that I think will be able to play for Team USA in 2028. And I'm just going to go down the list of guys that I think will be on the roster, or at least possibly on the roster. And I have their ages. In 2028, Anthony Edwards will be 27. Devin Booker will be 31. Jason Tatum will be 30. Bam Adebayo will be 30. Tyrese Halliburton will be 28. You got Jalen Brunson, whose name should be in the mix. He'll be 31. Tyrese Maxey will be 27 years old. Then you got Chet Holmgren and Paolo Banchero, who'll be 26 and 25 respectively. Zion Williamson will be 28. Evan Mobley could be a replacement for Anthony Davis. He'll be 27. Now, AD could possibly still be playing too. Then you have Jaylen Brown will be 31. We'll see, him being passed over in 2024 if that has an impact. Then you have Ja Morant will be 29. LaMelo Ball will only be 26. Brandon Miller, who I think could be an option just because of his size and his shooting and positional versatility, will only be 25. Donovan Mitchell is a guy whose name I have not seen as a player talked about to be on the 2028 roster. I think there's a chance for him to be on there. So while Team USA is in the middle of like a changing of the guard, I think we're in good hands. As far as prospects, and of course it is still early, as far as prospects that are not in the NBA that could potentially be on the 2028 team, I would say Cooper Flagg is probably the early favorite. He's already been acclimated a little bit to Team USA basketball. Ace Bailey is another player. I've heard some people talk about Scoot Henderson. I don't know. I think it's a little premature. But, of course, everything that I'm talking about is premature because, on one hand, 4 years is a long time. But then, on the other hand, sometimes when you look at guys and their production and if they're going to be in their prime, 4 years is they'll be playing their best basketball in 4 years. And then you got one of the Boozer twins that his name could be in the mix. So 2028 for USA, I think the pool is stacked. But like I said, it's going to be a changing of the guard because LeBron, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant, there's a good chance that they may not be on the team. And, of course, Anthony Davis, who was, in my opinion, a huge factor in them winning gold. And then Joel Embiid, I mean, who knows where Joel is going to be in 4 years. He's talked about possibly representing Cameroon. And he had some good moments. He had his best moment was in a game that Team USA needed everything they could get from him against Serbia. Who knows if Embiid's body will hold up. I mean, again, it's premature to talk about that. But I will say this. Team USA, in my opinion, despite some of the things that I've read, in my opinion, Team USA will be the favorites going into the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. All right, I want to talk about some teams that I think could possibly challenge Team USA, at least give them a run for their money. But more importantly, this episode is about some of the prospects that will be representing their national teams for other countries that I think we will see in the 2028 Olympics. All right, in the second segment, I want to talk about France. France is the team that is expected to be Team USA's biggest challenge. Before I talk about France, and if I believe they will have a chance to beat Team USA, I want to talk to you about FanDuel because I love sports. Clearly, I love sports. That's why I have a sports-related podcast. We are in August, and sports are just not sporting like I want them to. Football season is coming up around the corner, but we are in pretty much the dead period of games. And since sports aren't on TV every day like I want them to, FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. All right, second segment. I want to talk about France. Now, France is the team that is expected to, and maybe Canada. I'll talk about Canada too. But France is the team that is expected to give Team USA a run for their money. They faced Team USA in the last two gold medal games, and they were the last team to beat Team USA. It was back in Tokyo in an Olympic match. Now, France is expected to be stronger than ever, and that is basically because Victor Wembanyama, who in 4 years, he's already like crazy good now, but in 4 years, he could be in the discussion as the best player in the world. Now, there's some other players that may have a say-so in that. But Victor Wembanyama in 4 years is supposed to be downright scary. He'll be stronger. He projects to be a better shooter. He's already a really good defensive player. And what makes France possibly a threat to beat Team USA in 4 years is because they're expected to have much, much stronger point guard play. I'll be honest. France, sometimes they didn't look like they were in sync. I mean, they only qualified because they were the host country. Then you had the game against Japan where they needed a Matthew Strazel like clutch shot to beat Japan. And then they had moments where, despite the fact that they did not have really strong guard play, despite the fact that other teams didn't respect their guards' ball handling because they were picking them up full court, France made it all the way to the gold medal game, and it was a competitive game. USA didn't blow them out. And again, despite their weak guard play, France was very competitive. And so help is on the way. But I'm going to talk about Wembanyama. I thought that in the 2024 Olympics, he showed flashes of what he can be, especially in the gold medal game. But I thought he just settled for way too many threes. Just way too many threes. And he didn't shoot the ball well, other than maybe 2 games. I wonder, is part of that because he was settling for shots, or part of that was because he didn't have the playmaker or table setter to get him open looks? Well, that should change with Nolan Traore, who a lot of people think is a top 5 pick in the 2025 NBA Draft. Lightning quick point guard. A lot of people believe that he is France's best point guard prospect since Tony Parker. And I talked about him in an episode last week. He just played at the FIBA U18s. Didn't have like a great performance scoring-wise, but he averaged about 14 points, and he led the tournament in assists at 9 per game. But he can score. I mean, he can get buckets. He had a game in the Adidas Next Generation Championship where he had like 45 points. I'm impressed with his speed, his quickness, and his ability to get downhill and his playmaking. So I do think that he is going to be a major upgrade over what they have now. And then you have quite a few other guys that I expect to be playing for France in 2028. I mean, you can't not mention Alex Sarr and Zachary Risacher, the top 2 picks in the 2024 NBA Draft. I think Risacher will give them some size and versatility in shooting at the 3. Sarr will give them another switchable defender and rim protector. It's probably too early to tell if Rudy Gobert is going to be on the team or not. But, I mean, Sarr, he did have some moments where he had a absolutely brutal summer league on the offensive end. But if he can improve as a shooter and then continue to show like some of the flashes of ball handling and playmaking, I think him and Victor together in the front court could be really good, especially on the defensive end. And then you got Bilal Coulibaly, who, I mean, it's crazy. It is crazy. 2 years ago at this time, Bilal was expected to play in the Espoirs, like the under-21 league in France. Wasn't a highly sought-after NBA prospect, wasn't highly touted. Didn't really start playing major minutes on the senior team for the Metropolitans 92 until late in the season. And then just 3 or 4 days ago, he was getting minutes in the Olympic gold medal game. So Coulibaly is expected to be a factor there. Then you got like Melvin Aginsa, who actually led France's U19 team in scoring last summer on a team that had Alex Sarr and Zachary Risacher. He has size and is able to provide some offense. You got Tijan Salan, who was the 6th pick in the 2024 draft. He's expected to be on the roster. And then you got a guy like Noah Asingbe, who, I mean, he's only like 17 years old right now, but I think there is a realistic chance he could be the most talented wing of the bunch. Now, he doesn't shoot the ball right now and doesn't shoot the ball well, but if he could just develop somewhat of a respectable jumper with his size and athleticism at 6'10", I think he could be someone that could be on France's roster, at least in their program in 2028. So France, in my opinion, is U.S.'s biggest competitor. But if you don't think France is the best, the team that is going to give Team USA a shot, then you have to probably go with Canada. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will still be in his prime. Jamal Murray had an absolutely rough Olympics. I don't think he was healthy, but you have to imagine he'll be better. And then I think the biggest addition for Canada to at least give them a chance to compete with Team USA is Zach Edey. One of the things about Canada was they just did not have a lot of size, and Edey clearly brings in a massive interior presence that's 7 foot, 300 pounds. I mean, he's probably even bigger than that, but he provides rebounding, shot blocking, just size. I mean, he'd be a great screener, and I think he could have helped them this summer. I think he really could have helped them this summer. He opted not to play because he wanted to prepare for his rookie season with the Memphis Grizzlies. And I haven't read a lot about it, but I do imagine there are some people that are probably a little bit upset with that decision, because there are some people that think the national team should take precedent over the NBA club, but at the end of the day, the NBA team is writing the checks and paying the money. But I do think that he could have been a major help to them. And Canada was just disappointing. They didn't even medal. They had the second most NBA players, and they didn't even medal. So I think that Canada is going to be better. I mean, Shaedon Sharpe, Benedict Mathurin, those are a couple names that could be on the roster. Maybe Leonard Miller. I mean, Leonard Miller provides some size at 6'11". Probably missing somebody else, but those are a couple names that I think could be on the roster and help Canada. And then there's some other countries that I will get into. So stay tuned for the third segment. I'm going to talk about Germany. I'm going to talk about Australia, Spain, and then, of course, you can't count out Slovenia and Greece with Luka Doncic and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So stay tuned. In the next segment, the last segment, I'm going to talk about a couple other teams that have some prospects that I think we will see in the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. All right, last segment. I just want to talk about a few other teams that I think will be in the mix to compete with Team USA in 2028. Germany is another team that I think is going to be in the mix to medal in 4 years. Now, Dennis Schroeder will be in his mid-30s. He's pretty much the engine behind Germany's success. And so I imagine he'll be on the team in 2028. But there's a young prospect. I think he's born in the U.S., but he's been representing Germany on the national stage. There's a young prospect named Christian Andersen, who I think is going to be the heir apparent for Dennis Schroeder. Christian Andersen just led Germany to the under-18 championship. He had like 31 points and 5 assists in the championship game. So I do think that he will be a name that will be on Germany's roster in 4 years. A little on the smaller side, but he's a guy that has just put up big numbers everywhere he went. Played for Oak Hill last year, averaged about 19 points a game at Oak Hill. I think when he was like a sophomore in high school back in Georgia, he like set a state record. He had like averaged like 29 a game and had a 51-point game. Christian Anderson is buckets. He's a player that I think has kind of been hiding in plain sight in a sense, just because he's been productive everywhere he's played. He's won on the national level, and I think that because of his size, and he's actually a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, but he's actually bigger than people expect. I know he kind of looks a little smallish, but last I checked, he's like 6'2", so that's pretty decent size. He's not like super small, but I do think that he is going to be a major player for Germany down the line. And of course, you got Franz Wagner, who I think in 2028 he will be the face of German basketball. He's expected to have a significant role. Then you got his brother Mo. Then you got Isak Bonga. So I imagine those guys will be on the team. And then they'll add Tristan da Silva, who had a really efficient and impressive summer league. He averaged like 17 a game, shot 60% from the floor, 58% from three. So I imagine that he will have a bigger role, or he'll have a significant role playing for Germany. He'll provide depth and some outside shooting. And then you got Ariel Hukporti, who was I think he's like the 58th pick in the second round of the June draft. He's a massive interior presence. He'll provide some rebounding, a little bit of shot blocking, but I think that he'll be a big body that they can rely on because, facing Serbia, facing France, and facing some of these other countries, you're going to need some size. And I think Ariel Hukporti will be a guy that we'll see representing Germany in 2028. And then there's Australia. Australia is in a unique situation in the sense because Brian Goorjian, shout out to Brian, a guy that I met when I lived in China and we worked together. He stepped down as the coach. So this would be the first time in probably like 20 years, it seems, that they won't have Goorjian, Patty Mills, or Joe Ingles on the squad. I do think that, Ingles already said that he's not playing, and then Patty Mills will be like 39 in 2028. So but I do think that he'll find a way to play. But Australia has quite a few NBA players that I imagine will be on the floor in 4 years, from Josh Giddey to Dyson Daniels to Josh Green to Dante Exum, Matisse Thybulle, and Jock Landale are expected to be on the team. But Australia has help on the way with a few young guys that we're going to be hearing a lot about in the next few months. One is Roko Zakarski, only 18 years old, but he is 7'3". There are a lot of people that I've spoken with that believe that he could be a lottery pick in the 2025 draft. Very skilled, just a massive interior presence that is, again, very skilled, finishes with both hands around the rim, pretty mobile and agile. So I think that he'll be in the program. And then you got Alex Tui, who I think we could hear in the 2025 NBA draft. He committed to Gonzaga, backed out, played for the Sydney Kings last year. He'll provide some outside shooting. Tyrese Proctor, a guy that if you've been listening to NBA Big Board, he's a name that we've mentioned. I was really high on Tyrese at this time last year. I thought that he was going to be a top 10 pick in 2024, which, a lot of people thought was a weaker draft. And I thought that he was going to be one of the better players in the country last year. Decided to come back to school, and Duke is loaded. Duke is extremely loaded with talent, and so this draft in 2025 is considerably stronger. So I'm curious to see what happens with Tyrese Proctor this season, but he's a name that I definitely see in the mix to represent Australia. And then you have Johnny Furphy, who was the 35th pick in this year's draft. He'll provide some size, some shooting, and athleticism. So Australia, I felt like didn't have enough shooters this year. And in 2028 with Furphy and Tui, they should have some wings with some good size that can space the floor, that are more than just shooters. They can handle a little bit. I know Furphy's a good rebounder, so I think Australia is going to be good. Then you got Luke Travers, who has played for the Cleveland Cavaliers, I think the last 3 summer leagues. He's a name that I expect to be in the mix. Does some really good things. I think he is a sleeper 2025 NBA prospect. And then there's Taron Armstrong, who was one of my favorite playmakers in college basketball a couple years ago. 6'5", big guard, just a very fun and exciting playmaker. A aesthetically, I like big point guards that throw live dribble passes and just have some offensive creativity as far as creating for others. And he is one of the more exciting playmakers that I think, young playmakers in the world. All right, finally, I want to talk about Spain. Spain is a program that is in a major period of transition. I mean, they had the golden era where you had the Gasol brothers, you had the Hernan Gomez brothers, Ricky Rubio, Rudy Fernandez. Like, I saw Rudy Fernandez played in 6 Olympics, and he's been representing the national team for more than half his life. 6 Olympics, that's like 24 years. So he's pretty much been representing Spain for more than half his life, which is incredible. And he just finished his last Olympics. I think maybe Sergio Llull is the last guy from the golden era, maybe one of the Hernan Gomez twins. But Spain is in major transition. They were pretty disappointing this year. I think they only won 2 games in the Olympics. They had to qualify. They just don't have the same talent that at least I've been used to seeing from Spain in the last few years. But I do think that help is on the way. They have some pretty intriguing NBA prospects that I think will help them at least become a little bit more competitive and be better than they were this year. And you got to start with Hugo Gonzalez, who is a projected lottery pick by some. Hugo is a really good athlete, just a fierce and intense competitor, has good positional size, allegedly. I've seen him listed at 6'7", but I've also seen him listed at 6'4". I haven't seen him in person in a couple years, but that's a pretty big difference in my opinion. But he's a guy that can create a little bit for himself, has been in Real Madrid's system, and this year is going to be interesting for him because he's a highly touted prospect. But I wonder what type of minutes is he going to see for Real Madrid, a team that is loaded with veterans, that is trying to compete for the EuroLeague. And, of course, winning in the EuroLeague is going to be more important than Hugo's development. But anyway, Hugo Gonzalez is a player that I expect to see as a staple for Spain in the near future. And then you got Ethan Almanza, like the most decorated youth prospects probably ever. I mean, outside of Luka Doncic. I mean, the guy has won MVPs at the under 17s, 18s, and under 19s. And a couple of summers ago, he won MVP in the 17s, and I think it was the 17s and 18s or the 18s and 19s in a month. And he played for the G League Ignite, also played for Overtime Elite. Had somewhat of a disappointing season for the Ignite last year, but I think his game is pretty much predicated on point guard play. And so I do think that he'll be somebody that we're going to see representing Spain a lot in the next few years. And then Spain has guards. They have some really good guards that will be able to get him the ball in the sweet spots. Now, he decided to play for Perth. I thought he was probably going to get drafted, but I guess he opted to try to improve his draft position, and he'll be playing for the Perth Wildcats in the NBL next year. So I'll be monitoring Almanza's growth offensively because he was a guy that was kind of tricky for me. On one hand, I thought he doesn't have a specific skill set and any advantages that make him stand out as an NBA prospect. Then I started to like him just based off his IQ. And then as the season went on, I had a little bit of concerns about his game and his overall toughness. But I do think that his game is definitely based off of how well the point guard or playmaker next to him is on the floor. And he has that in Juan Nunez. Juan Nunez was the 36th pick in the NBA draft. I think he got drafted by the Pacers, but the San Antonio Spurs have his rights. Nunez is it's the lazy comparison because they're both Spanish, but he's like a Ricky Rubio type guard, bigger guard, just a crafty playmaker, understands how to set the table, get guys involved. I do think as an NBA prospect, he's somewhere between Rubio and maybe a Tyus Jones. I don't think he's an NBA starter type player, but I do think that he could be, if he maximizes his potential, a good rotation player, a good guy to have on your roster that, like I said, is the distributor, knows how to set the table, takes care of the ball. He'll need to improve as a shooter to maximize his potential. But he also signed like a 3-year deal with Barcelona, which is interesting because he grew up in Madrid, was in the Real Madrid system, and now he's going to play for cross-country rival Barcelona. But he is someone that I think is the point guard of the future for the Spanish national team. Then there's the Daimara, who had a disappointing freshman season at UCLA, 7'3". He's very skilled. He's just an interior presence at the minimum, just because of his size. At 7'3", he can decent shot blocker, not like a great rim protector, but you have to factor in his presence because of his size. He's skilled, can finish with both hands around the rim. I'm looking for him to have a much better sophomore year, but he is, in my opinion, the center of the future for Spain. And then there's Baba Miller, one of the more puzzling prospects in recent memory. I mean, if you were like putting an NBA wing and you're drawing up like the physical tools, Baba Miller has it. He's 6'10", 6'11", can handle the ball. He's fluid. He's athletic. I mean, there's a lot of things that he has going for him, but he just hasn't been able to put it together and didn't perform well at Florida State. The jumper is a work in progress, but we'll see if a change of scenery at Florida Atlantic helps him out as an NBA prospect. But he's definitely someone that I think we're going to see a lot of in the future representing Spain. And then, of course, there's Slovenia, which is led by Luka Doncic. They have a couple guys that I think could be in the mix. And then there is, Greece. You have to factor them in just because they have Giannis Antetokounmpo. But those are the teams, not necessarily Slovenia and Greece, but as far as teams that I think will be in the 2028 Olympics that have some intriguing long-term NBA prospects that, who knows, in 4 years they could develop into, you don't necessarily have to develop into a legitimate NBA star to give Team USA some problems, but I just ran off a few guys, some prospects to keep out for, and then I guess in 4 years from now we can go back and look at this post or this video and see if any of these guys lived up to the hype and expectations and if they will be representing their team in 2028. I wrote an article on this. It'll be a little bit more in-depth than a podcast, so it'll be on NBA Big Board on Friday. Well, once again, it's Rafael Barlowe. I want to thank you, the listener, for making the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. Now, for your second listen, you got to check out Locked On NBA. It's the off-season, but the off-season does not mean there is nothing going on the Locked On NBA channel. Whether it's your local host or national host, it just doesn't stop with basketball on Locked On NBA. But once again, it's Rafael Barlowe, and I am out of here.